So so for today, playing the Greenskins and the High Elves, two factions that I'm medium familiar with, but I could definitely get a little bit more familiarity on them. I'm not extremely comfortable bringing them in tournaments, so by putting in some practice and quick battles, I think that should help quite a bit. So, for our front line, we have a mix of elite infantry troops and chaff, keeping away from the middle tier infantry variety since they don't really for no particular reason really, but they don't do especially well versus the high elf infantry like rangers and so on. So I'm sort of more comfortable with this. Our strategy for today is to skirmish with these guys because they're very strong, and then use our cavalry and our goblins combined together to buy us some cycle charges. For the high elf forces, there is an eagle claw bolt thrower and an archmage of metal, which means that they are probably very conscious of the fact that the great shaman on the spider is a pretty big threat, so we would expect some armor debuffs on them, and indeed there are. There are also some AoE spells that we'll have to take care of, or at least be wary of. Now for the skirmishing phase, we're just going to be dodging in circles to negate damage from these skirmishers. I think the high elves spent a little bit more money than I did on their skirmishing tools. Oh, and shooting into the side of the hill there. But I think the high elves spent a little bit more money on their skirmishing tools than I did. By maybe just a smidge. So burning out their ammunition is pretty worth it. For our lord, we're going to be spamming Vindictive Glare onto the dragon, because you'll see in just a second, it does quite a bit of damage for only 4 winds of magic. So yeah, that's basically the gist of the skirmishing phase. With the formation of the high elves, we can't really there's no point flanking with our cavalry, so we won't be doing that. And instead, it's just the slow march up onto the high elf front line, throwing down more abilities to put in damage and also set their cooldowns higher. That way they can't debuff my trolls or my spider as they get into the fight. And we're also going to move our trolls in over to the left flank. Ooh, actually a big debuff goes down there on their armor, so we'll have to be careful. But yeah, the trolls are going to move onto the left flank so that they can collapse in on rangers. We definitely don't want them to be fighting spears. Put our goblins on skirmish mode, bring in our boar cavalry, and I think our trolls have just about finished their dodging at this point, and they can begin moving in. As for the black orcs, we don't want them to take too much damage from spells, so we'll pull them to safety, and we're going to now start using our goblins to flank around the sides. They have boar support, should do pretty well. And let's see here. I think if we can just shut down these archers, then I'd be a lot less worried. The main problem with these guys is that they can snipe out stuff like my lord. And if my lord dies, that puts us in a really bad situation. So there we go. Goblins and Boarcav have collapsed in. They shouldn't be shooting anymore, which means that we don't have to worry about dodging. That means that another Vindictive Glare on the lord should get some pretty good damage. As long as he stops dodging here, which he's doing a pretty good job of. But actually, yeah, he dodged my shots really well. I didn't know you could do that, but apparently you can. And that actually delayed my goblin for a while. But now that they've landed, we can throw down some debuffs to make sure that they don't cast any more armor debuff spells. And we're just going to be continuing to push forwards with our very nasty front line. And probably winning it from there. The high elves don't have too much that they can do outside of their AoEs, And with that shut down, I think this should be game. The Boar Cavalry will do very well against the Noble too. Just because they have mass, they have a lot of AP, which is all the tools you really need. And the High Elf Lord should be routing off too. I'd expect army losses also as soon as the Noble takes a little bit more damage. And GG. Nice. So, pretty nice game there. I think a lot of that just came to this front line collapsing a bit too quickly. If you compare lines, our goblins, well, we outnumber them in infantry. So the goblins have space to flank, and fanatics, savage orcs, and black orcs is just way too much for these guys to deal with. There was a little bit of a dicey situation where our troops got focus fired, but yeah, they just weren't able to do enough damage. I think build-wise, this is actually very nasty for me. But for this game, anyways, we're playing High Elves. We're up against Dark Elves. Our forces number very differently, with the Dark Elves at a very low army count. They've gone for Scourge Runner chariots, which are pretty threatening. But with the Sisters of Avalorn, they might have a hard time getting a lot of value. They can, however, get a lot of shots in onto my spearmen, who will be tanking. But as long as they're not hitting my cavalry, I'll feel a lot safer. They could, They could try charging into my backlines too, but the fact that Teclis has nets means that that's not really a huge threat. So, to begin the skirmishing phase, move up Teclis. We're going to also bring up our our lion chariots, and we're going to try going for a big layover here. Yep, a double net on these Hargoneth executioners is very good, because then we can do this fiery convocation, hitting both of them for all of their HP, and I would say that is a pretty good start. Yeah, not much else to say there. That is it's a combo that I've seen before used against me to it's a combo I've seen used to kill my own infantry, so I thought I would try it out. Now we still have to be very careful. The executioners are still alive. Teclis is getting hunted by Malice, and our archers may get compromised. Chase off these Cold One Knights. And let's see here. I guess our spearmen are going to just delay the Hargoneth executioners. To make sure our front line doesn't get breached, we have rangers over here. Let's see. Yeah, rangers will be holding up these Dark Riders. Oh, they are just Dark Riders. That's not too much of a threat. And they're just buying time for our Sisters of Avalorn. The chariots, one of them is actually picking off my... One of them is actually picking off one of my dragon princes. We can't really catch them, and I think I overextended there. But with another net, what we can do is just continue to fire away at this group over here. We can also snipe out Malice with some combined Sisters firepower. And he has proc to Zarkan, which means that it's going to be pretty scary. Let's see here. Yeah, and he does have quite a few abilities here that could threaten us. Balance of power is in our favor, but the Sisters are getting compromised, which is very bad. I think our actual target priority was pretty bad there, and we may get punished for it. You can see, balance of power has now swung into the favor of the Dark Elves, and just need to kite back with these Sisters and hope that they can live. This could actually go really badly, but we'll have to see. The Sisters are pretty mobile, but the chariots are quite threatening, and I think it would have been much better to focus fire these Hargoneth executioners instead of firing on Malice. He does do his second health bar is super threatening. And we also lost our Dragon Princes to the Cold One Chariots. So I think some big misplays there might have cost us the game, but we'll have to see if we can pull it back. We're still kiting with the sisters of oh geez, that's a big hit on Teclis there. Yeah, we're still kiting back with these sisters, but I don't think it's enough. Oh man, huge misplays there. They definitely should have been shooting at those Hargoneth executioners because our front line got demolished. The GG. But I think we know what we need to do next time. So taking a look at the army. Of course, and Aerocrastic has said that too. The last hit point is the only one that matters, and the fact that Malice ended up living in the end means that all of that damage from these sisters wasn't really worth it because they couldn't get the kill. As for the chariots, we way overchased with our Dragon Princes, something we definitely did not need to do. And that made them sort of just trade out into a much cheaper unit. And meanwhile, our Lion Chariots too were actually pretty mismicroed. I said at the beginning that their job was to take out the infantry, but I think I let them get charged by Cold One Knights. So lots and lots of mistakes there. Even though that convocation was nice, sadly wasn't enough. So this next game is Greenskins against the Wood Elves. We've prepped mostly to deal with a kite. And we also have a few tools to deal with a rush too. Some anti-large in the form of Savage Orcs and Stone Trolls should do us pretty good. For our opponent, he's opted for a heavy ranged build, going with a lot of Hawk Riders. Is going to be looking to pick away at my cavalry in the early game. So some dodging will help us out there. And then we're just going to camp our skirmishers right underneath the Hawk Riders to guarantee that we can land our shots. We can also use Gork'll Fix-It or a Vindictive Glare here to really punish these Hawk Riders. And I think they should be going down. In fact, our skirmishing right now is going so well that I think it's better to just pull back our army because we don't really need to engage right now. You can see our massed skirmishers here are putting in a lot of damage, and with the threat of a cavalry charge, these guys can't really land. If I didn't have cavalry, they're pretty heavy amounts of AP in combat would be quite threatening. And you see they do actually land. So we're going to have to see if we're gonna have to see if our cavalry has what it takes to punish these Hawk Riders. They do manage to chase off one of my units, but it is just a normal route, which means that they'll be coming back and they'll still have quite a bit of HP. As for these Hawk Riders, they do a lot of damage on the charge, but they don't like getting charged themselves, and you can see my opponent traded out pretty badly for landing there. Only because we had all of our cavalry though. So something to keep in mind. You definitely want to have your cavalry support for your skirmishers in case something like that happens. So now that we've routed off one and killed quite a few Hawk Riders, we can play pretty aggressively with our skirmishers, just charging right at these guys. And that should be able to take them out. But with this sort of movement, we do run into the problem that his shots will be hitting us a lot better than our shots hit his, because he's retreating. So we're going to disengage there because we can't sit directly underneath. Also, since I didn't really cover it, the reason we sit right under the Hawk Riders is because it makes sure that your shots will actually land. Now we also have Grom, and he can do quite a bit too. Let's see here. Given that there's no cavalry support, I think we can just use Grom to begin cycle charging this infantry along with our chariots. There aren't a whole ton of well, yeah, there's just not a whole ton of threats here for Grom. So he can just begin charging here and putting in a lot of damage without taking much himself. He runs into the war dancers, which hits them for a small amount, but without Grom actually taking too much of a trade there. Does look like the Hawk Riders are coming back in, and a Gork'll fix it. Will slow them down so we can catch them, and that means they should be on their way out soon. Meanwhile, in the front line, it's just some Dryads here, and Durthu disengaging now actually, which is very likely to get punished. You can see a charge on the Dryads will do well, and he's trying to pull to catch Grom, but he just has too much mass. I think what our opponent really needs to do here is to try and get the engage on as quickly as possible. And without being able to engage quickly, it just means that we pull more and more of an advantage by skirmishing over here. We're also pulling back our Goblin Spears to make sure that they don't get crazy AoE'd by Aerial. She does have a sort of Earthblood-like ability, or not Earthblood, but she has like an AoE ability that can do quite a bit of damage, and we want to be avoiding that where we can. And there we go. The Dryads are gone. The Hawk Riders are extremely beat up, and we still have a pretty strong force. So, let's see. If we wanted to play extremely safely, we could just keep waiting it out and skirmishing here. But given that we have this much of a lead, I think it's fine to take the engage here. Just because there's no real need to continue delaying. It's just a little bit riskier. So there is a huge group of infantry here that we'll have to worry about. But with charges in the back, they're going to be having a hard time. They can still do a lot of damage, so it's still something I have to worry about. And big AoEs from Durthu too. Look like they could cause some of our guys to rout. So we'll have to see how this goes. We use our Fanatics maybe a bit early on the Dryads, which could have caused problems, but their leadership's extremely low now, and a charge in the back will probably be able to break their leadership. And it looks like it does. A mass rout coming in from the Wood Elves. We can also pop a wall to make sure that we can kill Durthu and Aerial here. And with our remaining archers, I think should have a pretty solid win here. A lot of those troops are shattered now. Durthu is on the verge of routing, so I think we're going to focus him. Usually I would focus Aerial, but with Durthu being this close to getting routed off, that would be a lot better. We have the tools to chase him off, and if we can just get him to get off the map, that would be very helpful. But it looks like that's not the case. Durthu stands, surprisingly enough. And to react to this, I think we're just going to have to disengage with some of our troops. By disengaging, it means that we're much less likely to die to some sort of crazy AoE. Durthu and Aerial are pretty scary when it comes to that. So we'll just be leaving some of our troops here instead. And then from here, it's just cycle charging with Grom. And probably cycle charging with the Stone Trolls too. If Grom does take a lot of damage, we'll also be using his... whoops, some of these guys are coming back. If Grom does take a lot of damage, we can just leave him back and use Lucky Banner when we decide to engage. But that is, it's not for free. It is at the cost of our infantry. So we would rather just be cycle charging in and out as much as possible. And there we go. Looks like that's going decently well, but Grom getting caught between Aerial and Durthu could cause some problems. We're trying to disengage with him now, and a big Soul Stealer does come down. But it goes down on Grom, which means that we can actually pull him away from our troops to avoid some of that damage. He's also regenerating too, so it's not really the worst thing ever. Grom will continue to live, but Durthu and Aerial are still extremely hard to kill. Now I've given up on trying to kill Durthu here. And instead, we're going to focus on aerial. We're going to proc all of our buffs here. And then bring in a nice big old charge. And hopefully we can take her out. Durthu is a little bit... Oh, our opponent said GG. Anyways, yeah, Durthu is still a little bit hard to kill, but given the balance of power, I think we've won it. Our opponents hit army losses too, and we also have a ton of Vindictive Glares, which I think do okay versus aerial, and I probably should have been casting them earlier, but it didn't matter too much in this case. And yeah, there we go. So I think essentially a lot of this game came down to the skirmishing. Our opponent didn't have any battlefield dominance despite putting 4,000 gold into skirmishers. And that is because we took a very safe combo. Always take, yeah, if you just want to be safe from getting cheesed, taking 2 Wolfrider archers, a poison archer, and the AP ones is enough to deal with most threats that come from stuff like 4 Hawk Riders. Once we completely negated that, it was just down to just attacking and winning from there with our superior forces. Away. This next match is up against Legion with his army of 600 Tomb King's units. Let's see here. He has a pretty small army compared to ours. And we're seeing immediately quite a few chariots and quite a few Necropolis Knights with halberds. So the chariots are sort of less scary for me. And I think we're going to be shooting at the Necropolis Knights. As per usual, we're going to be advancing our front line to make sure that we have some space between them and our range units. And that lets us, let's see here, what's this? Lich Priests of Nehekara, interesting. Yeah, that gives us space to actually support our front, yeah, to support our backline, because we can see things that try to push through. Let's see here. As for the early game, I think our priorities are to bomb out these Tomb Guard. And we're going to see if we can position. They are a moving target. Makes this pretty difficult. But if we can just position well enough, should be able to take them out. Our Gyro Bomber practice is coming into play here. But these guys also aren't very clumped up, and it means that our bombs actually didn't do too much damage. Some chariots are coming in now too. And it looks like Carrion also caused some problems to my bolt throwers. You can charge them with our... let's see, we can charge them with our cavalry though, and that should work out pretty well. We can also at this point start doing some more effective bombing runs versus clumped up Tomb King's infantry. See, that worked out a lot more than the early game. So maybe next time that's what we're going to be focusing on. As for our backline, it's getting compromised pretty hard by Cetra. Let's see here, he's charging my archers now. But it is just Cetra. He's not especially great at killing archers, and he'll have a hard time killing my bolt throwers too. So we're feeling okay just sort of leaving him alone for now. Our main focus, I guess, is to try winning this frontline fight, but with the Tomb Guard, things are getting collapsed pretty quickly, and we're not feeling extremely confident here. Let's see, the Tomb Guard have actually done quite well versus my Rangers. Cetra is still very healthy, and the Necropolis Knights are looking pretty hard to kill. Same with the Tomb Guard. Let's see. In fact, in general, we don't have a whole ton of AoE to deal with this, and we don't have a whole ton of single entity power to win either. But I'm seeing an opportunity here. Cetra is isolated right now, and we do have our 2 single entities to fight him. As for the chariots, they're nearly shut down. And if we can just get them to not kill our infantry, I think we'll be good. So let's send in our cavalry to stop that. We'll also be using our Phoenix and Turin to try and kill Cetra, while netting down the Necropolis Knights to make sure that they don't kill these two over here. And so far, it's looking like we're doing okay. Putting in decent damage against Cetra. He does have to disengage. But he's getting close to these support goal stalkers. Who will be hitting pretty hard. Let's see. We likely can still take the fight, though. And Cetra is taking a beating, which sets us up for the late game. Since I think our Phoenix and Teclis, can have a decent fighting chance against Necropolis Knights. They're not great, but I think that's our best bet right now. We can also take out the Stalkers too. And with some cycle charging from the Silver Helms, it looks like our infantry fight along the right side is going, at the very least, decently. We'll throw down a heal on that Phoenix too. And with some shots onto these Stalkers, it means that we can hopefully pull them in a few directions. But oh dear, looks like Cetra's coming back in. And our backline's getting shut down by chariots still. Definitely not optimal. But our our Teclis and the Phoenix, their combo together, should be able to do, at the very least, decently. Their healing is quite strong. And we'll have spear support in a second here. Shutting down the Stalkers also. And it's really just, it's come down to the single entities, really. We can, if our single entities here can hold out and win these monster fights, puts us in an okay position. But without infantry support, they are on their way to getting surrounded. Teclis 2 is taking a lot of damage, so we'll proc his potion, which gives physical, or ward save, which is good. And it was just a terror rout, so hopefully we can get our troops back in on the fight. Meanwhile, a Ushopti summon comes down. It's going to muck up Teclis's retreat. And we're going to hopefully be able to push through. It could be difficult, given the fact that Ushopti have a lot of mass. And it looks like... Ooh, actually, with a nice attack animation, it looks like Teclis actually will be able to escape. So we're going to run with him. Continue hunting down Cetra. And then just really hoping that our infantry sticks together. But, man, despite Teclis's escape attempts, he does get caught up again on some mass. I'm not sure exactly what caught him there. And he's on the verge of routing. So we're going to throw down a big heal on top of him. And then, I guess sending him in on these Necropolis Knights? I'm not sure. I guess instead we're going to hunt down Cetra, use another healing proc, and hopefully he can take him out. The ammunition is running low on these Stalkers too, which helps. But we have no more infantry support. And as we know, it is very important in monster fights. Looks like this may be the end for us, unless we get some miraculous hits on Cetra. Outside of Cetra, it's just these knights that are the main threat here. And the knights could go down to these two. They are just halberds. And with Cetra down, means that the infantry are crumbling. There's also a chance we can get a healing proc with the Phoenix, and that may win it. We'll have to see. At this point, since it is just single entities left, there's basically nothing to micro. We're just fingers crossed to see if this Phoenix decides to live, but it does get routed off. There's still a chance that it could rally, though. But Necropolis Knights with halberds are a pain to kill with single entities. You can see Teclis is taking a lot of damage, but we do have another thing of healing that we could use. And we will use it to keep in the fight longer. Hopefully this Phoenix comes back. Let's see. Meanwhile, Teclis just continue fighting. And it looks like the Phoenix will be coming back for sure. But do we have enough fighting power to win it here? Necropolis Knights with halberds are cycle charging Teclis now. which means that he'll be taking a lot of damage, but he's extremely tanky. We have the Phoenix coming in too, and we can punish the cycle charging by charging them in the back as soon as they engage on Techless here. And it looks like we'll be able to do that, which will hopefully go okay. We also really want this Phoenix to get its healing proc, and if it can do that, that'll be good. We'll have to see. Acropolis Knights are taking a lot of damage. Phoenix is getting really low, and it dies. No. No. So yeah, our last Hail Mary, likely not enough. There's still 11 Necropolis Knights. They can cycle charge, and I think just going to have to call this one GG. Techless is a decent fighter, but not surrounded by that much monstrous infantry. So I think Legion, the way I set up my build, we really exposed ourselves to this type of playstyle. Our infantry didn't have enough support to survive against chariots, and our Lord combo, couldn't do much against these Necropolis Knights. There were definitely a lot of threats here, and we were more ready to rush and GG Legion. Yeah, we were more ready to rush a ranged Tomb King's build, but we were definitely not very prepared to deal with a monster and chariot heavy style build. I'd say we still did okay though, and I probably, if I just microed better, that could have helped too. Especially with this Phoenix and Techless combo. They could actually stick out in a fight a lot longer than I expected, and in the future I think I'll play more aggressively with them. But in general, I think I'll change it up for next time. Ready? Okay, so next game is Greenskins against the Beastmen. We have our usual skirmisher corps, except without the AP archers, because we're up against Beastmen and they don't have lots of armor. Our large monster is going to be the Arachnarok Queen, Spiderling Hatchling summons to run into the backline of archers so that she doesn't take too much damage. Some skirmishers too, only the most mobile variants to make sure that the Beastmen don't outmaneuver them. And a front line of Savage Orcs. Now, the game is going to be getting underway very quickly, with the front line charging towards me without the help of these Razor Gore herd. Could actually cause some problems here for the Beastmen. There's also a healthy amount of Chaos spawn in the back and some Minotaurs too. But yeah, we're actually going to try to abuse this Vanguard by taking this engagement quickly. Let's see here. We're also landing with Azag. Get in the... Oh geez, I can't think. We're landing with Azag. To terror out troops, we're moving our skirmishers, just so that they're staying safe, and focus firing Chaos Spawn with them. Meanwhile, Arachnarok Spider will be summoning hatchlings on top of the archers. And I think some big leadership debuffs are in order. We're going to collapse this right flank. Big leadership debuff, hopefully. And using our cavalry to support the back line. Triggered our first Wa extremely early, which is great. And nice, it looks like our leadership bomb is working out pretty well. We're going to save Winds of Magic so that we can use that more. And sort of avoid Spirit Leeches where we can, except probably on these Minotaurs, which we definitely want routed off. They're a threat to our Arachnarok Queen. Getting them off the field should be very helpful. Now, as these Beastmen units get routed off, it's important that we chase off as many as we can. See this back line here. Could use some chasing off for sure. But yeah, it looks like our cavalry in the back should be able to deal with them. Meanwhile, our Arachnarok Queen going to be continuing to take the main fight here. And we could send her out to deal with this Cygor, but it's just a summon. So no real need to do that. Meanwhile, the benefits of our mobile cavalry is showing itself in that this back line is let's see here, in that the back line is doing very well. These side Centaurs can't run away because our troops are too fast. And if we just have enough power, we can get them to rout. And we can see there, we do indeed manage to pull through on that front. So, yeah, we'll just be chasing those guys off. We definitely don't want to get charged in the back in the late game. And this game is looking to be very much in our favor at this point. So we just have to make sure not to make any crazy misplays. That being throwing away our Lord. Or this Arachnarok Queen. And I think we're good. Let's see here. Mogre is getting pretty low here. But he's going to be hard to kill. And I'm questioning if he's the target that I want to be focus firing. Based on the fact that it seems like we are quite ahead, I think we will be focusing him. Just to get army losses to trigger a little bit faster. But otherwise, if I wanted to play safe, I'd be chasing off all these troops on the fringes. And disengaging from these chaos spawn summons. But in this case, I think we're doing just fine. Whoops, a big leadership bomb here. Should rout off Mogre, and then that should be army losses. And there we go, he's gone. And it's just these chaos spawn summons left. A pretty nice, clean win. Doing much better than we are with our high elf play. So, once again, every time we see this on multiplayer, I must reiterate myself. Vanguarding gives you a positional advantage, and that's it. It doesn't give you a power advantage, and we saw there that my opponent deciding to Vanguard gave a huge downside. It actually let us engage faster and run over his infantry before their support could get into place. After that, it was mostly just clean up, and it was pretty rough for our opponent. As for our build, I think it's actually quite nice versus the Greenskins. See, the Savage Orcs did absolutely amazing. And the Arachnarok Queen did pretty well too. Skirmishers, this is why you take them. They almost always pay for themselves. And there we go. GG. So this next game against Coast, we've prepared for everything except for Rotting Leviathans, since we forgot our Metal Caster with Plague of Rust. But for many other Coast builds, should be ready. If it's a defensive style of play, we have a ton of archers, which can deal with bombers and handguns no problem. Bolt throwers to deal with artillery and deck gunners, and Illyrian reavers to deal with scurvy dogs. But, what's it? And yeah, if we get rushed, we'll be kiting back using a Lothern Seaguard to catch out Mourngulls. And yeah, that's basically it. So Mourngulls aren't really a problem. Sirens aren't a problem because Alarielle has her magic damage buff. But what is a problem is Rotting Leviathans and their high armor. Usually we'd have a Metal Caster, but here we simply forgot it. So, fingers crossed, that's not what we face. And just a second, we'll see what our opponent has. His army is at 1,000, which is pretty small when it comes to Vampire Coast, which means we could expect some sort of rush or very heavy artillery build. You'll have to see. So getting into the game, we're going to zoom out so that we can see if there's scurvy dogs in the corner. And if there aren't, then we'll be moving on to the next decisions that we'll be doing. It could be a quick advance if we see something like Queen Bess. And if it's a rush, we do have a bit of time to pull back to safety. No scurvy dogs in the corner means there's a little bit less for me to micro. And our opponent looks like they've gone for a ranged heavy build. Lots of gunnery mobs. some deck gunners, and scurvy dogs. So you can see the fact that I took 3 Illyrian Reavers will help us out a lot here. Because now we have 1 Reaver to match each scurvy dog unit. You can just use them to zone them out. And usually you won't see Vampire Coast take 4 dogs because it's just such a huge hit to the rest of their army. So deck gunners are moving up, taking a lot of damage from the bolt throwers, but they can get healed by a good old Noctilus here. In fact, Noctilus could cause some problems, but we're pretty lucky that this Vampire Coast army is not especially strong on the rush. Just have to make sure that we don't get shot to death, and to do that, we'll just have to stay out of range of those deck gunners. Scurvy dogs are moving in. They could try to push through the center line, but we have our Reavers at the ready. And we're just positioning our archers on this left flank so that they can begin shooting these handguns. These deck dropper bombers will be pushed away by our archers, no problem. And as long as we make sure these dogs don't kill us, I think we'll be fine. The deck gunners will be taking too much damage from the bolt throwers to really survive. It's the reason why we have the bolt throwers, and they're doing a really good job. You can see the 700 gold unit already nearly dead. Meanwhile, the dogs are getting pushed back too, and we can move in our archers actually here to begin shooting the black spot. Meanwhile, deck dropper bombers trying to hit up my cavalry won't be doing too much because of the low model count of the cavalry. So we're pretty happy there. And as long as we position our archers to face those bombers, we should be safe. Meanwhile, Sirens on the left flank could pose a little bit of a threat, but they can't really engage with Alariel nearby. Her and the chariots, as you'll see in possibly just a second, will run them over no problem. And let's see here. Meanwhile, on the right flank, just some maneuvering of these bombers. Now, dogs are charging in. We can countercharge them with our cavalry if they'll move in. And we're bringing in our chariots to hit the Sirens. You'll see in just a second. It should do a lot of damage. Meanwhile, these other dog units can get pushed back by rangers and cavalry. And let's see. And then I think we're good. If we can just shut down all these dogs, then we should be able to pull out a win. In fact, that's actually our priority here, because the dog units are really the only mobility when it comes to the Vampire Coast. Without them, we can actually start kiting back with our archers, and there's not a whole lot Vampire Coast can do there's not a lot they can do once we start kiting back. You can see these bombers are now outside of the support of the guns, and that buys time for our archers to fire away at the bombers. You can see they shred them up without getting punished at all, and that's a very nice trade for us. Meanwhile, let's see, I guess our bolt throwers can focus these shade raids now. And yeah, we just gotta keep kiting away from Vampire Coast. We've hit the state where there are no more dog units. And the only punishment for kiting is taking some hits from the bombers. But see here, they don't do a lot of damage even to archers now that they're so battered. And with the collapse on the Vampire Coast backline, do believe we should be good. There's still a few things to be careful about though. Mostly Noctilus. Yeah, mostly Noctilus, but he's on foot. We can sort of just ignore him for now. And let's put down some healing here too. Yeah, so Noctilus, we're just ignoring him. He is on foot. He's as slow as the rest of the Vampire Coast army. And by just avoiding him, it means that we can set up a game where it's really just Noctilus left and a whole bunch of our archers and chariots, which will be a very hard time for him for sure. He is throwing a bunch of AoEs though to kill off my rangers, and we are getting surrounded with a L'Oreal. It looks like she had a bit of a hard time disengaging there. But with a few shots from our archers, she should be able to escape. Looks like that's a no. But even so, a L'Oreal should be able to get out of there just by now that she's routed. But man, these zombies are being really sticky. So plan B, we're going to bring in our chariots to save her. And then she should be safe. And there we go, chariots are in, they're blocking, which should let her run out now. And it looks like she does finally manage to escape. Let's see if we can push her with the chariots, and there we go, she's free. Now, on to the point I wanted to talk about. We've took our archers off fire at will, and that is because we want to save ammunition so that we can shoot Noctilus to death. Our opponent does decide to stick in the game. We will be able to see how that goes. Oh, these are depth guard pole arms. Jeez, I'm blind. Always remember to know which unit you're actually running into. Very, very important. Now, anyways, back to the tutorialization. What you want to do when it's just single entities like this left, well, after we kill the depth guard, is to wait till they get extremely close to your archers before firing away. The reason you want to do this is because your opponent can dodge your shots. And if you're low on ammunition, that means you can lose the game just from wasting ammunition. So it's very important that you control this properly. So first things first, to actually give yourself some space, what you do is you engage with some melee troops, and that will pin down the single entity that you're trying to kill, so that you can line up your archers in a good position. You want to put them a decent distance away, and then go ahead and right click target that you want to fire on. Then oh geez, they actually fired. I didn't expect that. But anyways, then you want to disengage with your troops, and then, well, looks like tutorial's over because we hit army losses. But what would happen is you disengage with your melee troops while your archers are at almost point blank range, and then you have them fire. That way you get all the damage in you can, and then you don't get cheesed out by late game single entities. And there we go. A nice game. Just really just dissecting the vampire coast there. We've taken 200 losses to their 1,000, which went great. I think the main things that went wrong here is that you can see the scurvy dogs actually died out very quickly, trying to shut down the archers. And after that happened, he couldn't really pressure any of my archers. They could just run amok, shoot up all these guns, no problem. And then it was a pretty easy win from there. Sirens too got shut down by Alariel. And the only thing that really surprised me were these depth guard, who almost got 2,000 gold value, I think, attacking my lion chariots and Alariel. This next build is Greenskins against Ulrich Rahl's Empire. A very strong Empire player, and we're going to have to pull out all the stops to try and win it here. Taken a heavy cavalry force and a pretty weak front line, but still relatively strong. For our lord, we have Wurzag with some abilities to help in the cavalry fight, and a net ability so that we can snipe out Franz if it comes down to it. Let's see, and yeah, that's about it. Skirmishers will help push away these pistoliers, and they can do pretty well against Knights of the Blazing Sun too. So we're going to move them up to begin skirmishing, see how they do. Now we're in a bit of an awkward position given this lake in the center, but Ulrich doesn't have any artillery, which means that there's no real pressure for us to advance, and that actually buys us a lot of time to just skirmish here with these wolf riders. Ooh, some huntsmen are showing themselves though, so we can pull away, dodge most of that damage, And it looks like a decent dodge, but we definitely don't come out on top in that engagement. On the plus side, though, it does reveal that huntsmen are over there, which gives us some information. And it also means that we can wheel around along the right side to avoid them. And that'll let us get a little bit of damage here. So let's see. On these spearmen, they are shielded. Oh man, and a big volley's coming down actually on my troops here. Pull these guys back to make sure that they don't take too much. And hopefully we can just outtrade the Empire here. But man, some very aggressive huntsmen could actually cause some problems. They do pull back because they do have to worry about my own troops here. Just engaging and pushing them back. And we also have some goblins moving up, which should be able to pressure them pretty nicely. And we're just going to continue this while we wait for our army to get into position. It looks like there's actually not a whole ton of range units for Ulrich Wall. And because of that, it means that we have to be taking very nice melee engagements. Now, my fanatics have been revealed, which means that these huntsmen are going to be disengaging, which is the perfect time for us to be moving in with our army. Because the longer he disengages for it, the longer it means that he won't be firing in on me. And there we go, we're pushing them back in awkward directions by moving in with our Spider Rider archers. And yeah, it looks like so far things are going very well. Our fanatics are getting real close to those archers. Our cavalry is coming in quite quickly. And Warzag should be able to put in some pain too, but oh man, that's a big cavalry force coming in. We'll have to be very careful to keep our to keep the cavalry alive, pulling them through our goblin spears. Should be able to do that. And let's see here. Yeah, some buffs over there should mean that that fight will be as good as one, hopefully. So we're moving in. Hopefully that goes okay. There's some knights moving into my fanatics, and my skirmishers are having a hard time. A bit of a sacrifice to actually a bit of a sacrifice to make sure that we break the range units of the Empire, but I think it was worth it. Now for the fighting over here, our cavalry is actually getting routed off. And oh geez, Warzag's actually in a really bad position. Let's throw down an AoE to get him out of there. And it looks like that works out pretty well. So we're back to the status quo. See, Wolf Riders are going to be getting into position. We're also going to be cycle charging these Flagellants, because of course having that infantry advantage is big. And hey, it looks like Franz actually lands. So we're going to pin him down and give him everything we can. Meanwhile, hopefully Ulrich is distracted and he can throw down a foot of Gork here. Try and kill the knights, but it looks like he's paying attention a little bit foolhardy of me to do that. But maybe it just doesn't matter, since Franz is taking a lot of damage. We do let our cavalry get killed off though, but let's see here. We put in a lot of damage on Franz, which is quite nice. Let's see here. As for the cavalry of Ulrich, we're engaging with ours, and I think we should be able to win it given the increased forces. But Franz does come in, and we are expecting some routes here, especially without infantry support, and it looks like that was a little bit of a misplay. We were a little bit too aggressive with our cavalry on that left side, but on the right, we do kill some Knights of the Blazing Sun. We do get Franz pretty low too, and wow, it looks like the casters is on the verge of dying just from overcasts. So I think Warzag's ability here is working. Let's see. Yeah, so that's a blessing at the very least. But man, I think that was a really big misplay with my cavalry there, especially since we don't have healing. And Franz is now running amok along my lines. He has we don't have a lot of mass to really kill him here. And that's what's worrying me. We do have some spider riders here though, and we can use them to keep the huntsmen away. I think that's going to be their goal. In the meantime, we're just going to be regrouping with our cavalry, try and get them into a position where they can actually get some charges in instead of getting charged themselves. So let's see, yeah, just regrouping them in my backline should do well. And we are winning the infantry fight, which helps a lot. We have some skirmishers too in reserve. Balance of power is extremely close. Our archers too should be able to do great. They can shoot away at the pistoliers and outtrade them quite well. There we go. We do see indeed that happens. But there are huntsmen that are operational too. And what, we just have these spider riders to really deal with them? Not the best situation in the world. These spearmen too are a little bit of a problem, but we just charge them in the back. With our cavalry, I think that should be fine. We do lose our skirmishers though, which is not great at all. Ulrich still has Franz too. And man, these huntsmen, they've just been causing problems the whole game. So let's just focus them with our archers. Hopefully we can take them out. We still have a decent amount of infantry too, more than Ulrich. But not a whole ton. That could spell our demise here. Skirmish cavalry too, moving in along the flanks. Cause some problems. And how many savage orcs do we have left? Not a ton. In fact, quite a few. Or, yeah, very few. More likely. And, yeah, that's not great. Huntsmen are moving in now. They'll be getting in more shots onto, looks like my cavalry. Nice target priority from Ulrich. And man, oh man, oh man. This is getting close. We may have to try advancing. But right now with the cavalry in the back line, that's not the best. Franz does indeed move in. And hopefully we can catch him out. Let's see. Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a big cavalry fight. Going to proc a Wa and bring in Warzag to try and buff up the leadership of our troops. If they don't rout, then that's good. But man, that's a huge hit. They're taking a lot of damage. And we're seeing that they're starting to rout. Balance of power is going into the favor of Ulrich Wall. And I would say this game is quite likely to be over for us. Sadly enough, I think, man, just a big misplay with my cavalry in the mid game. Really did it for us. The GG. So, some nice play on both sides, I think. And I think there was also an opportunity where we could have been tailing off these huntsmen with our skirmishers. Skirmishers too actually didn't get a whole ton of value either. I believe I had a misplay with them somewhere early on and they got routed off. As for our cavalry, they actually didn't pay for themselves too well. And a lot of the work actually came down to the archers. The archers and our front line. Actually, there was very little value all around. Despite both forces sort of beating each other up quite a bit. Let's see. Meanwhile, cavalry on for Ulrich Wall got like medium value. And I think for next time, the focus is perhaps instead of trying to snipe out Franz, I'll be using my nets to kill the knights since there were so few. And probably have a bigger focus on shutting down these huntsmen, since in the late game they were actually quite the problem. Yeah, wow, very fun game, super informative. Yeah, GG. But okay, this next game is High Elves against Wood Elves. We've gone for sort of a standard build here with massed archers, and we're going to see if we can shoot the Wood Elves to death. There's a lot of spear units here in Lothar and Seaguard, and and just normal spearmen, even a unit of Silverin. And the hope is that they can stop any rushes that come our way. For infantry, we have... Well, actually, for infantry, Wood Elf infantry isn't especially scary for High Elves, so we're okay facing that. And in case we get skirmished, like looks like it's happening right now, we do have a lot of shielded units that should be able to do okay. So our goal at the moment is just to advance, since it seems like we are getting skirmished. There is a Glade Lord here on a mount, or maybe, yeah, it looks like on a mount. And this is the Glade Lord with a net, so we'll have to be very careful that Teclis does not get sniped out. You take a look at them; they're actually on foot. An interesting choice. And see, it looks like what's this? Some Glade Riders are moving in currently. But if we just bring in Teclis, I think we should just be able to shoot them to death. If they do charge into my archers, can also turn and fire. And it looks like they're charging into my spears instead. An interesting choice. We'll see if it pays off. It does let these ranged troops fire away at the backs of my spearmen. But the spearmen aren't extremely valuable anyways, and that did actually come at the cost of those Glade Riders routing off, which is a pretty rough time for the Wood Elves. As for these Wild Riders, they have gone netted down by Teclis, and we should expect them to get taken out pretty quickly. But a misplay from me means that my cavalry actually gets routed off too. Yeah, my cavalry does get routed off. But maybe we can pull it back by running these Way Watchers down, but a nice net comes down from my opponent. We'll stop my cavalry from moving. We'll actually have them take quite a bit of damage, but our massed archers will do a lot better against... they'll trade out very well against the small numbers of skirmishing Way Watchers here. So we're not too worried on that front. We still have an extremely large archer advantage, and our cavalry is about even at this point. The fact that we're able to actually engage some of the Way Watchers, though, is very big. And once they start going down, then, yeah, once the Way Watchers are down, there's not a whole lot that can deal with the archers. Even though there is cavalry, they're not super scary because yeah, they're not super scary just because we have so much. We have just so many archers here that even if they do engage, they can't possibly shut down all of these guys, as long as we don't clump them up, that is. So we'll have to turn on guard mode to avoid that. Then I think we're good. For this infantry, we had a nice opportunity to net and fiery convocation. So we just threw that down, and that looks to have taken out these blade singers, which is extremely high value for us. They're also engaged with the Silverin, and their armor should help out there a lot too. And on the right flank, the Way Watchers are dealt with. So all in all, things are going quite well. The only questionable thing, well, I guess since these are blade singers, it was worth using the net there. But now I'm sort of wishing that we had it for this Glade Lord. Let's see here. We're waiting 13 seconds before we can cast it. But honestly, I'm not sure if it matters here. We've actually developed a very large lead, taking out the Way Watchers and taking out the cavalry, without losing our actual important units, that being the archers. They're able to kill the Glade Lord. They'll be able to tank any shots from the Way Watchers. So even if our opponent does decide to kite us, it's not a huge issue. And they have enough ammunition to kill the rest of the Wood Elf units. So I guess it's just all about carrying out the game here. Let's see, what other ways we can throw the game? I guess if Teclis gets caught out. There aren't any nets though, but we'll just have to be a little bit wary about the Way Watchers and the fact that they could move up at any moment and try to snipe out some of our troops. As for the cavalry, mostly just keeping some spear units safe, and Lothern Sea Guard have 3 archer units that we'd like to protect. And if we can do that, then there's no huge worry there. We're nearly onto army losses for our opponent. And I think that's GG. Okay, nice. So there we go. A pretty straightforward game there, with yeah, just some very punishing archer play. This sort of combo of net and massed archers is very similar to how wood elves usually play, but with high elves, they can usually field more archers for a cheaper price, and that can cause a lot of problems here. Of course, wood elves can rush, but for the same things that I said earlier, just having spears will make that very difficult. So GG. Yeah, I'll probably stick with this build next time. And also, note to self, always be careful with your cavalry. For some reason, I just keep throwing my cavalry away. Despite being able to save my scurvy dogs. But, nice. Nice. Let's see, it is 2 p.m. here. So, I think I will close out the stream for now. So, thank you very much, guys, for watching. And I guess we start closing out the stream.